Hello and welcome to Bat Flips and Nerds, the baseball podcast with a British twist. It's John here, and I'm again joined by my great mate Russell. How are you today, mate?
I'm doing good. It's another very interesting interviewee that we have in line for you all, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's a good one. This guy's gonna definitely bring the energy. Our guest today has pitched over 100 big league games across 6 seasons with 6 different MLB clubs, and also made almost 200 appearances in Japan's NPB across 3 seasons with the Carp and the Marines. He's also the co-host of the excellent Brushback podcast and the author of a recent book collecting his approach to the game of baseball and to life, 9 Innings to Living Your Best Life. He's also known as the happiest man in baseball, powered by smiles. Welcome, Jay Jackson. How are you, mate?
I'm great. I'm well. How are you? Appreciate the great introduction for sure. No, that was awesome. But I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, you really are. Let's start there, Jay. Normally, we start these conversations at the beginning of a baseball career, but it feels appropriate to start with where you are right now, and that's a published author and a guy who's been touring the States doing motivational talks in schools and in colleges. So tell us about the book. Tell us about why you wrote it and what it says about you as a ball player and as a person, because it feels like a lot of the essence of Jay Jackson is, and the lessons that you've learned through life and that you share across your social media are right there in print now.
No, for sure. It's definitely words to live by, my words that I personally live by. I actually reread it quite a bit and read other things like it a bit just to kind of no matter what stage of life I'm at. So like right now I'm just kind of rereading through it again just to check some boxes and make sure I'm on the path that I truly need to be on as well. But the book came about kind of funny. Like I didn't think I was going to play last year, even though I ended up getting a major league deal. I didn't think I was going to play. And so I talked to a guy who I was going to have be my mentor for life after baseball. And he talked to me for a couple minutes and was like, hey, you should write a book. And I was like, well, I don't know the process to writing a book. And then he put me in touch with a publisher and an editor. And my editor did a great job getting my book out and helping me fulfill my dream of doing that, since, I was kind of doing it and living the book as I was writing it, because of the simple fact that I was going through some injuries and going through some things with the team and kind of having the season that I didn't want to have. So the people getting the book are getting a lot of me and a lot of my struggles that I had last year and a lot of my in-depth feelings about how my life was going at the time, trying to make sure I was staying positive through some kind of really negative situations, but just taking the best approach I can and enjoying the moments I had when I could. And so it's just it just came about just wanting to keep my word to the publisher. After I told him I was going to do it, I got signed to a major league deal after. So I was like, hey, you know what? I always tell people I'm going to be a man of my word. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to do the book. I'm going to do it whenever I have time. And then, I mean, I guess I got lucky and had the injury. And so I had more time to finish the book and finish it in more, a more rapid pace. But it just came out and came to be that I got to live through the book and got to put some of my principles and my life lessons and kind of what my life was going through in the book as well. So it was a great time for me, honestly.
And what changed in the book based on your circumstances? Because we'll get into your career a little bit later on in the conversation, but it is, as I said in the start, it's been quite circuitous as these things go. But last year was an interesting one for you. You started the year on a real high. It was the first time that you'd made a major league roster straight out of spring training, and it didn't go probably as you'd hoped. So do you think that this ended up being a different book, or was it still essence you coming back to your center and the things that have kept you going as you've come through all of the challenges that you have through your career?
I think I don't think it would have been different. I think it's actually better, honestly, because of the things I was going through. Because, like I said, it wasn't the year I wanted to go through, but also come to find out, I was playing through some injuries at the same time. I ended up having to get a PRP injection in my left knee and in my right shoulder. So that kind of shows you kind of what I was dealing with, and trying to play at that level with those injuries and not being out there 100% or even at 90% really, and trying to get the best hitters in the world out. I mean, it's going to kind of go how it was. And for a little bit there,
Right.
I was having some success, I was having some good innings, but it was just as the season wore on and as the innings piled up, my knee and my shoulder just couldn't take it anymore. And so it just ended up being, I was just trying to get through it, and it just, like I said, it's tough to get outs in the big leagues when you're not at full strength. It ended up, not being the year I wanted to, but it is what it is. So it's just, the book is me going through that and making sure that I was keeping a positive mindset through me knowing that I was pitching not at the best level and going through these injuries and trying to make the best of the situation. Because honestly, at the time, I felt like the team needed my help because we had some other injuries in the bullpen. And, I was trying to just cover and be there and be the best teammate I could, but it ended up not being in the best situation and the best efforts for me.
That's really interesting what you're saying about struggling through injuries, and it's a conversation that you hear a lot of. Or my wife's just popping in the background. Hello.
You're good.
It's a conversation that you hear a lot of guys in baseball have about their career, about how you stress your injuries, particularly about where you are in your career, right? So you being in your situation, you over the last 3 or 4 years have established yourself as a big leaguer, but still you're on the margins, on the bubble of those rosters as sort of middle inning, transitioning to late inning relievers. And so being open and honest about your injuries is always a risk for you, right, in those situations. This is something that loads of big leaguers talk about after they've retired, that being straightforward about how injured you are is always a risk when you're in a big league clubhouse, isn't it?
Well, yeah, for sure. Especially now, it's more, guys do it. I mean, I'm from the older school where we never told about our injuries and that we kind of just played through everything. Now, guys, they tell you to go to the trainer and go in there and get checked up as much as you can to make sure you stay on the field and stay healthy. And I feel like it still leaves like, I feel like if you say it all the time and you feel like you're injured all the time, you're telling yourself that you're always hurt. And like, instead of just playing through certain things. So I try to just like play through as much as I can and try to just do the best I can with what I have until, once my performance starts suffering, I'm like, okay, well, obviously there's something wrong. Because I mean, last year, honestly, if you look at it, it was like my worst year in the big leagues ever. But also, I was taking account of a lot of things. Like if I look at just like the first innings I would pitch, like I normally had really good first innings, and then I would go in, then my second innings would suffer sometimes. And I think that was just because of the injuries, because I feel like, my knee and I would get a little stiffer and like my shoulder would just become heavy. Like it just didn't go as well as, I wanted to be a multi inning guy at the time. If I was probably a one inning guy, I think I probably would have been all right. But I think being a multi inning guy last year kind of it caught up to me a little bit. And I mean, that was just my role too. So it is what it is. And, that's just what, we used to do. Even though I was on a guaranteed deal last year, I think I felt like I had to prove why I had the deal too and prove that the year before with the Blue Jays wasn't a fluke, even though the year with the Blue Jays honestly was just kind of how I've pitched my whole career. And like I said, if you kind of look at the numbers last year, I feel like the first innings, like I kind of did well, and then I would just kind of let like the second inning just kind of snowball sometimes, and it was just I was the guy who had to kind of wear it sometimes too. So I mean, that just shows you how good our bullpen was. Honestly, that as well. But I mean, that was just the role I was in. So you win some, you lose some. I mean, back in the day, I was the closer and a setup guy, so it happens.
Yeah. So I want to sort of talk about the sort of the Jay Jackson extended universe. We've got the book, and we've got Smile, which is not only how an act. It's the way you are as a person. It's the way you live. It's also your mantra, which is start making intentional life efforts. Where did that as the sort of core of what you're about come from? When did you start being the smiley guy in the clubhouse? When did you start making intentional life efforts, as you put it so well?
I think that honestly, that point started just I just one day I just asked the man upstairs. I was just like, "Hey, is baseball what I'm supposed to do? And if it is, you know, I'm never going to take the game for granted again. I'm just going to, honestly be who I need to be and be happy that I'm out there every day and kind of try to make it the best situation possible no matter where I'm at, as long as I'm out here and if this is what I'm supposed to do." And realistically, like the next day I got a phone call from my agent for me to have a job. So it was like, okay, like I guess I'm supposed to play baseball and I'm gonna enjoy it. And then from there, I still felt like because before then I kind of was trying to be like everybody else. I was trying to fit the act of, this is what the typical baseball player is. This is what success kind of looks like instead of being myself. And then I got the job, and then I started enjoying baseball a little bit more and realizing like, hey, like this is who I am. This is when I play my best. And then it really kind of took off when I went to Japan. And then in Japan, it kind of just became like, hey, like honestly, every time I got 3 outs, I was just so like, hey, like I'm happy that I got 3 outs because especially I was like I said, I was a setup guy at the point in time. And so like me being in those big situations and getting 3 outs, I was like, you know what? Like I'm so thankful that I got 3 outs and that kind of just became who I was. Like I would just smile walking off the field and then I got to be known as Smiley Jackson and then Smiley J and then it just kind of I was like, you know what? Like I do pitch better when I'm happy and I'm like in a place of gratitude. And so when I ended up coming back to America and coming back to the States, I just kind of kept that same mentality no matter kind of what was going on. And, baseball's kind of shifting away from kind of the old school and coming into the new day and age at that point in time. So it just kind of was a nice little transition. Like I got to go away for a little bit and come back and like, have a new take, but have, be the same old person and just enjoy the second half of my career, I guess I would say.
How did that like? How's that different from maybe like your first few years, like in pro ball? Because obviously, with that 17-year experience, you're talking about things on the latter half of your career. What would like Jay Jackson right now be telling Jay Jackson from that it's like the 18-year-old or the 20-year-old coming into baseball?
I would have told him to not stress everything so much. Don't try to be perfect. Like that was kind of what it was. I would tell him just, enjoy those moments. Like there's gonna be times that, you know that you're gonna want to go do certain things and you need to enjoy the moments that you have out there with the guys too. And I wouldn't change a lot of the things I did earlier in my career. I would say do the same things, but enjoy it more and enjoy where I was at more and enjoy the present moments that I was at in there instead of like stressing that, oh God, like if I throw this pitch and, I have a bad outing, I'm gonna get sent down and blah, blah, blah. Like it's just, enjoy that present moment that I'm there and be grateful for what I have, even though, like I said, it was different back then too. Guys are making a lot more money in the minors than we were back then. Like back in when I was playing, we were making, $1,000 a month, and that was before taxes. And we had to sometimes pay for our own housing and our own food and all these things. And so, I mean, it was a little bit more of a stressful situation back then too. But I would say for sure enjoy that moment that I had. Just be grateful for those moments because I mean, the people around me that truly were around me and the friends that I still have, they were always going to be there supporting me. Like in the family that I have, they were always going to be there supporting me no matter what. So, it was just making sure that I would enjoy the game a lot sooner than I actually did and being grateful for the moments I had a lot sooner than I did. Because I mean, even my first half of my career, I had a lot of success. I just didn't translate that success, probably the way I should have. I don't think, God wanted me to have more success because I didn't think I was ready for it at that time. Well, I think I probably would have done something stupid and, tried to take advantage of it instead of, getting where I got to and being able to, honestly be grateful and be in that moment of the success that I had when I did have it.
So this is just like touching on the start of your career, right? It is extraordinary, particularly knowing that you've been a fixture in big league bullpens for the last few years, and you had a really successful period in Japan. You were in the minors for 7 years before you made your big league debut, and that in and of itself is sort of a lesson in resilience, is it not? Because there aren't many guys who hang around for 7 years, and you did everything, right? Some years you were a starter, some years you were a closer, some years you were doing what you did with the Twins last year. How did you manage to sort of process through that when you were being jerked about and you played for, I think it was the fifth different organization, was the Padres, wasn't it, that you played for when you made your debut?
I think that I just enjoyed it. I started enjoying baseball. That's kind of what I told you before. Like, I got to the point where, like, like I said, I asked the man upstairs. I was like, "Hey, like, is baseball what I'm supposed to be doing?" And it wasn't the job that got me to Japan, but it was actually like when I was a free agent playing baseball, and I was actually about to, I was about to get married to my ex-wife at the time, and she we were about to get married, and like I said, the minor league pay was kind of terrible. So it's like, okay, I got to figure out how to pay for a family and all this stuff. And so, and like I said, I got a job like the next day for free agency. I was going to be able to provide for my family. So that was kind of like the thing. And like I told my dad at a certain point too, as long as baseball was paying for my bills and I was going to be able to be out there and enjoy it, like I was going to keep playing. And so luckily I kept getting free agent deals and I kept getting opportunities and I kept putting up numbers that I got a chance to enjoy it. Because now, like, again, a lot of people put so much stress on it that, like I said, once I started enjoying it and becoming more grateful, I think that I had more success. And so I had more time and people saw that. And I think it translated into me being more grateful, translated into me getting more jobs. And so I mean and I mean, early in my career, like I said, I was the top prospect for the Cubs a few years. I was also in the top 100 prospects. I won a championship in the minors with one of my teams. Like I had a lot of success. It's just like I said, I don't think at that time it might not have been my time, but also I did get jerked around. I felt like a lot. And so going through that, it just, I had to rely on my mom and my dad and my foundation a lot, which, you know, I talk about in my book too, is the foundation that I have is my parents. And my mom and dad would always be like, hey, are you enjoying it? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm enjoying everything, but, you know, the politics of the baseball thing. And I was like, I love the guys. I love being out here. I love being able to travel. I love playing baseball. And they're like, well, don't let that one thing overtake your whole joy of playing. And so I would just kind of live by that. Like, you know, that was my foundation. My mom and dad would always tell me that. And so that was just kind of like how I just got through everything. And like I said, I just started as I got older and the more grateful I became of the game and the more I enjoyed the present moments that I was in, my numbers actually got better and I became, you know, a better person and a better player. And, you know, like I said, luckily I just kept getting jobs.
And was there anyone within the game who was supporting you? Because you know, as you touched on in your answer to my previous question, you know, you're a top prospect, you're a top 100 prospect. You were in AAA within 80, like a fixture in AAA within 18 months
Yeah.
of being drafted. You know, and everyone says, you know, progress with prospects is not linear, right? It's one of the
Mhm.
hoary cliches of baseball. But you must have, at points through that, needed to support. I mean, your parents obviously a huge part of that, but were there support networks within the game who you were leaning on, and has that changed over the course of, you know, your 17-year career? That you touched on the pay's better, but the conditions also seem better in minor league clubhouses now, right?
No, they're definitely the clubhouses are better for sure too. All the metrics of it completely. Like they've revamped it. You know, they have a union now. They, you know, they're treating it, you know, more friendly and more family friendly and not so much as such a just bottom line business from top to bottom, like from the top, you know, to the bottom of the minors as well. But honestly, I was just speaking about this to my friends and to my family the other day is I didn't really have like a lot of support going through the game because of, like you said, how quick I got to AAA. Most people know the game and a lot of people don't. It's like you go through the system a lot of times with the guys you get drafted with. And so you normally go from each level with those same guys. And so you build a reputation or you build a camaraderie. And that's how you see like a lot of these baseball players that play for a while, they have friends that are in their weddings and stuff like that. There's always their teammates and stuff because like they went from getting drafted to low A to high A to double A to triple A, and then they were in the big leagues together. So they spent all this time together because normally they just grew together. For me, it was crazy because I got drafted and then we spent a week in Arizona getting ready right after the draft. And once I signed, and then most of the college players that I was with that I would think that, you know, I was going to grow with, we all went to short season together. And then from short season, I was only in short season for 2 weeks, so I was barely getting to know the guys I was with. And then I went to low A. And so in low A, I was with most of the guys that were drafted the year before I was, and, you know, 2 years before I was, and then some of the younger prospects from that time. And a lot of the same time, a lot of the like Dominican guys who didn't speak a lot of English either. So I was there for about a month. So I didn't really get to meet those guys and hang out and be like friends with them either. And then I got to sent to high A. And then I was in high A and I actually won a championship with those guys in high A. And so I thought that was the team I was going to grow up with and like be with. And it was mainly guys. There's like two guys from my draft. It was me, Casey Coleman, and Andrew Carpenter. No, it was no, it wasn't Andrew Carpenter. I forgot who it was. No, it was Andrew Kashner. It was Andrew Kashner. We were all together on that team, but then it was guys from like 2 and 3 years before us that were like the Cubs' big draft class of all the position players, like college position players. And so we were there for the last like month and a half of the season. And so then that was my first year in the minors. Like I didn't get to really make friends with anybody, you know what I mean? So like all the teams I was with had already been together for 1 or 2 years before I got there. So I didn't just get to, I tried to, put myself in there as much as possible. And so from there, like you said, the next year I was in double A and then triple A. And then at the time, triple A was more of veteran free agent guys just going from
Mm,
up and down to the big leagues. It wasn't like it is now where it's a lot of prospects and those guys are getting shuttled up and down. It was more veteran guys. And so my friends and the people I was with were all like 28 and 29, and I was like the only 20, 21-year old in triple A at the time. So, I didn't get to really, and then every year I was in triple A from then, like I said, it was free agents. So the team changed every year. It was different guys in and out. And so then I became the journeyman, right? So then I was all over the
mm,
place, and so I never really got to make friends either. So I didn't really have a supportive system. I think when I was first a prospect, I had a couple people that were interested in talking to me and helped me a little bit. I talked to Marlon Byrd, I talked to Derek Lee a little bit. Um, those were the main guys I talked to, especially with the Cubs. But like for the most part, it wasn't anybody that was just around me all the time because, like I said, I was moving around so much. And as I got older, I think once I became a free agent after my first full year of being a free agent was I became a free agent in 2013, I believe, and went to the Marlins and signed with the Marlins. And then that off season after that was like my first year being a free agent, and I think I was like 23 or something like that, or 24. And every team that called me wanted me to be a AAA veteran already in my career. And I was like, I'm only 24 years old or whatever it was. And I was like, how do you want me to be a AAA veteran? That means you're already counting me out to not make it to the big league. So, that was tough for me. And that's just kind of how teams looked at me so early in my career. And luckily, like I said, I just kind of just like I said, I started being more grateful for where I was at instead of getting worrying about the people jerking me around and worrying about, the teams and how they would treat me to a certain aspect. I was just like, hey, you know what? Like if I'm here, this is my safe haven. This is the place like that I can only control what I can do from out here and nobody else can. Like if they want to send me down, if they want to, you know, send me home, whatever else they want to do, if they want to make up little things here and there about my off-field stuff here and there, then fine, they can do it. But for the most part, I was like, I'm just gonna go out here and start enjoying it. And then, like I said, just my career ended up being better after, going through those things, having the opportunity to go through those things and battle through those things of, hearing kind of some lies that people told and some rumors here and there and still pitching through it and then trying to find jobs after then finding jobs and then showing people again and again and again why I should be on a team or on a big league team is it's been funny. Like I was telling a story again to one of the other guys on another podcast that you look at a lot of the guys that come back from Japan, go from America to Japan, and then come back. I was one of the few guys who had better numbers than most of the guys who've come back and back over. And that's no disrespect to those guys who went over there and played and came back. But I didn't have any offers to come back to from Japan back to America and have a big league deal like these guys did when I think I should have. And like I had nothing. Like the year that I thought that I would have, I didn't get an offer from any teams in America, and my team wouldn't allow me to talk to another team in Japan that year. And then the next year, I played through a minor injury, and I still had a pretty good year, and our team did well again, and I pitched well. I had no interest from any teams until literally like the week before spring training started, and I signed literally, I think, 2 days before spring training like officially opened up for pitchers and catchers, and like our report date was the next day or something like that. And I was all the way in Japan at the time too, because I had just had my baby boy in Japan, and so I had to fly from Japan all the way to Arizona, which a lot of people don't know. So I had to do that, and it was crazy. So it's just like how my career's gone, and I've just learned to accept it as long as I had an opportunity to play and to enjoy life and enjoy the game I was playing, and that it was able to provide for me and the people around me that I cared about. I was just going to keep playing. So I've just been blessed to be able to do it.
And you've been quite vocal around kind of like the treatment and the opportunities for like young black prospects in the sport. I guess part of it comes from your journey yourself, but like, what's that like? Is that something like specifically that you kind of obviously you see for others happening? Do you talk to other like young guys when you were around and be like, am I being singled out here, or is this kind of something else that's happening on a larger scale?
It wasn't something I singled out. You could just tell, just because when I was coming up, we had a lot less, like, I wouldn't say we had a lot less. You could tell which organizations were more keen to draft and develop African American ball players and black baseball players at the time. You know, what the agent that I had in the scout who actually signed me told me, you know, what teams like to just kind of like look out for and like kind of like be kind of just kind of scope it out and just look at like the discrepancies that they have. Like they might have like maybe one black player in the minors somewhere, or they look at their draft period, like they might not even draft the black players for the past like 4 or 5 drafts. Like it wouldn't just be like, it would be obvious, but to the untrained eye, it wouldn't be obvious. You know what I mean? And so the Cubs, like we had a few guys, and I mean, I'm thankful that I had the guys that I had around me. But you see them drafting and developing more black players and more black players playing now. But at the same time, you see more of us drafted and playing, and there's more of us in the minors, but it's not correlating to it being the same in the big leagues. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you look at the 80s and 90s, there's a ton of black players and African American players on most of the teams, all stages, you know, especially in the big leagues, there's a ton. But then slowly, it kind of phased out and it got less and less, and the game became like less interesting, I guess, which is what they would say. But it kind of phased us out and it made football and basketball more popular. And then, you know, you didn't have any, you know, black athletes in baseball being the face of the league anymore like you did in the 90s and in the early 90s and things like that. So I feel like it's my job to like tell those black players when they come through, or the ones that are around me, to, you know, give them some help and like give them other tips and tools and things that I've seen. I do it for all the players for sure that are around me, just because I mean that's the type of person I am. Like I want to see everybody be the best person they can and try to be as positive as I can. But especially like if I see a black player, especially as much as I've been in AAA and the big leagues over the past couple of years, if I see them there, I want to be able to like, hey, like, you know, give them some extra like little pointers here, and go maybe out of my way a little bit more to see them have more success, because I know what it takes for them to get in the door, and then not only get in the door, but keep the door open enough for them to stay for a little bit and shut the door behind them possibly, so they can enjoy themselves and be comfortable. You know, that's what it comes down to for me. Like I think Tommy Pham, I saw a quote from him the past couple of days that, you know, he was talking about how um, the game's changed so much over the past couple of years that like when he first came in the game, like the average big league player had, you know, 5+ years of service time, whereas now it's gotten to so bad that it's less than 3 years for each player. Like right now, like technically, I have almost 3 years of big league service time, and like you said, with 6 teams. Where, you know, I went to Japan for 4 years. That probably would have been some years. I probably hopefully would have got some more. But the fact that I didn't come back, and like I said, with a big league deal with what I did, it's I don't know if it's the system, or if I don't know, because I mean I played well, and like I said, maybe I should have played better, but who knows? It is what it is. And like I said, I just try to keep having fun as long as I have opportunities.
Do, do you think that I sort of want to ask you about the state of things right now? You've touched on it a little bit in answer to Russell's question, but it does seem like there's a conversation in baseball happening right now about the place of black players in the game. You know, you talked about the 80s and 90s. A lot of people talk about that, but there's also a few guys in the spotlight. I mean, CC Sabathia going into the Hall of Fame at the same time as guys like Tristan McKenzie, Hunter Green being in frontline starters, and guys like Kumar Rocker and Mark Church getting an awful lot of hype as prospects. Do you feel like that's signs of a structural change, or are these just, a bit like Mookie Betts. Everyone's that's the argument everyone makes. Well, what do you what are you talking about? One of the best players in the game is an African American guy. Is he the exception, not the rule? Are Kumar Rocker and Mark Church the exception, not the rule? Is the point that you made in answer to the previous question, that it's about volume and it's about loads of people of African American origin being throughout the game that's the issue, not that there is no Mookie Betts in the way that there was a Ken Griffey in the 1990s.
I think it's similar to that. I mean, but you also don't see baseball marketed as well as, a lot of other sports too, but it's also, like I said, it's not so much, I feel like it's from the top down. Like there's no black owners, you know what I mean? There's no voices in the front offices really either. I mean, you look at even the GMs and the VPs of player personnel for a lot of teams. Like there's no really African Americans there either. You don't see it, especially the pitching coaches and bullpen coaches around the teams and around the leagues, for African Americans to have other people to look up to. You have them in their communities like here and there, because there's been guys that have played, and there's the old school guys who have played who are, like I said, like I look at, some guys like Marvin Freeman and some of my guys like CJ Stewart, who I grew up around, and that era of baseball. Like I said, there was more black players, where those guys are starting to get older now. And so who's going to teach the younger guys? Like after that wave leaves, there's not going to be a lot of us. And then they're going to want to look at our numbers and look at the like accomplishments that we have. And like I said, a lot of guys don't have a lot of time like those old guys did either. And so, and again, and it's not being marketed to that same community as well as basketball, and football are. There's such a rah-rah around basketball and football that baseball, even though like it's a huge sport and the stadiums are always packed, it's not on TV the way that it should be. It's not marketed around the world the way it should be. It is a global sport because of Shohei and because of other guys in other countries. But at the same point, like I said, like they're not talking about, baseball in the barbershops. Like honestly, just to be real, like, it's basketball season, and then during the summer, like it's okay. What's high school summer football looking like? What's college summer football looking like? What's the summer league looking like? It needs to be more prevalent to those communities too, where in the barbershops and around those communities where it's like, hey, like what's such and such hitting like today? Like did Hunter Green throw 9 today? Like how was this? Blah blah. And again, you see with ESPN and the deal with MLB, I think they just terminated their deal to stop having as many games on TV too. So I mean, it's just not marketed the way it should to the right people to get that. But then also the front offices and the people around the front offices and the owners aren't really out there and pulling for these guys to be in their organizations as well. I think, like I said, there's a lot of us and a lot of black players that are in the minors, but that hasn't transitioned to the big leagues for some reason. And I've talked about it on Black Baseball Mixtape, and I've talked on my podcast, and I'm glad to see that there's more of an influx, and I see that there's more players coming in, but the numbers still say that, it's still pretty low right now, So like, it's tough to be like I see it happening, but the proof needs to be there as well.
And it's almost that there are structural issues beyond MLB, like from even what we see from this side of the pond, to be that like everybody talks about the cost effectively of a baseball player before even touching college. The fact that you have to play on these travel ball teams, the fact that you have to kind of be able to fund your kids spending probably tens of thousands of pounds on them to kind of be seen, like that's just something that puts it into like a different economic bracket for people, and then puts out the people who do not live in that economic advantage.
No, 100%. I think you see it with, you have the NBA, like with these basketball and baseball. Not basketball, baseball camps, but you see it with the basketball and like the football camps, like the Under Armour football camps. The NBA, they have like the Nike League, the ABDL, the Adidas League. All these companies have these leagues to build these prospects up, where baseball, like you have Perfect Game and these AAU and travel ball teams, and you have these prospect teams from certain places, but you don't have I don't see the backing to be as, marketable as, these basketball teams and these football camps are, you know what I mean? I feel like, you see these camps and you hear about these kids all the time. Like everybody hears about the number one basketball prospect all the time, but you don't hear about the number one baseball prospect as much as I think you should. And I feel like, I mean, I feel like that's just our game to a certain degree. Like we've always been underrated, but like, and I think people just get bored at a certain point too because we play so many games, and it's like it's just when we're there, I feel like we're always there, and so like you're like, okay, finally, like it's enough baseball, but at the same point, like I've said, like I don't feel like it's been marketed properly to the right people that it should be. In baseball, to a certain degree, is an acquired taste, just like certain other sports might be, like certain people with cricket and certain people, with badminton or ping pong, like, things like that. Like you have an acquired taste to baseball, and you ask people a lot of times, I'm like, oh, well, baseball's boring. And then now that they're trying to cater to the fans, I feel like baseball is losing some of its, heat essence that it had before. And I feel like it's going to circle back at a certain point in time. But like I said, I think it boils down for as long as like for these teams and these companies to get the word out. I feel like there should be like some Nike baseball teams that they're like promoting, or a Nike baseball league or something like that, which would be cool to have, right? You can have the perfect game and all these things, but like if you had a Nike or Under Armour or like a Reebok or Adidas baseball league where you had the top prospects playing for certain teams, and especially with the NIL now, you can have guys, not necessarily play for high school as prospects, but also you can have a college summer league where you have like Nike sponsored like baseball leagues and stuff like that instead of like, but I think MLB has their sponsor and backing behind some of the summer collegiate leagues now too, though. So I think they're kind of like overseeing all of it instead of, like I said, therefore you put Nike or somebody else, you get fresher eyes and newer eyes and different people's opinions of what baseball could be. Instead of having to change the game, you can have it in a marketable situation where these people can come in and be like, hey, well, what you're doing is already fantastic, but if we get somebody to just shoot it from this angle or get somebody to look at it from this point of view, you might get some more fans instead of changing the game to make it try to fit a narrative instead of, being the narrative.
So, I mean, I could probably talk about this for hours, but we've only got a certain amount of time, and we do really want to talk about Japan. Russell and I both like love like talking to players who've had the opportunity to play out there, because it's just like it's exactly the opposite. It's exactly what you are talking about, wishing that people felt like about baseball in the
Yes.
States is what it is there, right? It is part of everyday life and a national obsession. Um, I just want to sort of like open the floor to you there, but I also want to start like, I bet you didn't think you were going to pitch in 67 games in that first year with the Carp, did you? That
No.
was
Oh my God. Okay, so it's a funny story about that too. Like I said, when I'm fully done playing baseball, I'm gonna write another book, and that's gonna be my autobiography. So there's gonna be a lot of like untold stories and
right.
more in-depth things that like people don't know about my career that I think will honestly help people see kind of and realize and go honestly go buy the first book, hopefully once I get the autobiography out. But I think everybody should go buy the first book before the autobiography anyway, because it
Absolutely.
is a great book. Um, but that first year I went over to Japan was actually the second year I had honestly become a full-time reliever. So I had just figured out like kind of like my what my routine was going to be. And the year before, I had thrown in like 60 plus games as a reliever as my first year as a reliever. And I was just like, okay, like I guess I figured something out. I guess this works. But it was like my first 4 years of reliever, and I go to Japan and I threw like 8 or 9 games in spring training. And then I threw 67, like you said, during the regular season. And then I threw in every game we played in the playoffs but like one. So I ended up with like almost 80 something games that year. And so, and people don't understand, like my numbers in the Japan series were so bad that year. And that was Shohei's last year. And my numbers were so bad. And I look back on some of those games and I was like, Jesus Christ, I was really tired. Like, and I like, you don't think about it while you're playing because you're just like, hey, it's the playoffs. Like, I just need to get through this. Like, I need to just, but like, some of my pitches, I was just like, these are not moving whatsoever because it was just like I was probably just like I was so tired and like I played every game. Like not only did I play every game, like I probably got like up to get in almost probably I pitched in 67. I probably got up to throw in a game probably about 100 times. counting the 67. So yeah, probably like another 30 times they were like, "Hey Jay, like we might need you in this situation."
And you also pitched in the Mexican Winter League that winter as well. So
Yeah.
add that kind of like into that. Like my question is kind of like, how did the MPB deal come about? Like, was it a quick conversation? Did that stint in the Mexican Winter League stoke some
Well,
conversations, or was it happening beforehand? Were you thinking of
this
like,
is gonna be. Oh, well, sorry, I cut you off there. Sorry. But it kind of it was. I was trying to go over to Japan for like 2 years before that, but at that point in time, like I said, it's crazy how baseball has changed. Where now guys that don't even have big league time are going over to Japan and like whatnot. Like where before it was kind of like a requirement that you had big league time at least some point. Like you had, even if you had like 2 innings of big league time, like they're gonna ask you to come play in Japan more than anybody that's just got AAA time. But now, like it's, if you only have AAA time, like you're going over to Japan, or if you're in AA, or even if you're, you know, look at who is it, Carter Stewart got drafted and went straight over to Japan for 7 years. But it's it happened. I was with the Padres, and the Padres told me that I was going to be on the team making it probably out of spring training, because that was the first year that I was on the roster. And we have options in America where they can send you up and down for like pretty much like 5 years of your life. Like you get to be wasted as long as they want to. As long as you have options, you get wasted pretty much. So um, the Padres told me that I had a good chance to make the team out of camp, depending on what moves they made during the off season. But I was going to be part of the bullpen, and they wanted me to be part of the bullpen. And then I got the option to get called from Japan, and my agent was like, "Hey, I'm going to tell the team." He's like, "Do you want to?" I was actually in Mexico, and he's like, "Do you still want to go to Japan?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, why? Like, what's? I was like, depending on the deal, like I'm gonna go. Like, but like more than likely, like I'd rather go to Japan anyway, because it's somewhere like I've never been, and I get to go play baseball. And then he told me the deals of the contract. He's like, "You're going to be guaranteed more money than league minimum in the major leagues here. You're going to get a signing bonus. You're going to have a couple little incentives here or there, and they're going to pay for like all your living stuff, and you're going to get a flight for your family too to come visit you." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm definitely going, like for sure." Like, and he's like, "They're gonna want you to be either the closer or the setup guy." He's like, "I'm not sure yet, but they almost made the playoffs last year, and they're hoping that like you can help." And I was like, "Nah, for sure. Like, I want to go." And then he went and talked to the Padres, because when you normally go through those processes and they have your rights, the Japanese team normally has to buy you out, and so they have to pay the team amount of money. So the Padres said no to the Japanese team, I think like 2 or 3 times before my agent called me and was like, "Yo, they keep saying no. Like, what do you want me to tell them?" And I was like, "You go tell them just that like they can't, like they shouldn't keep me from this opportunity in so many words. Like I'm gonna get more in depth on that, like I said in the autobiography, but in so many words, I was like, like, hey, like if they're not going to tell me that in the big leagues, like for sure, then like why are they keeping me from going and trying to help another team win? Like that was kind of my main thing. And he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna." And then he talked to him one last time, and they finally said yes. And I got shipped over to Japan. Like like I said, I was in Mexico, and my team in Mexico, I think we were like first or second place or something like that. And I was like, "Hey, can I stay till at least like we're for sure like in the playoffs?" And my agent's like, "No, the Japanese team said you cannot stay. Like, you need to leave immediately." And I was like, "All right."
And so you played those first 2 years with the Carp, who were, as you said at the time, one of the great teams. And as you said, your first year there was Atani's last year. But in your team, you had the sort of the bookends of like two greats of Japanese baseball, where you had a 41-year-old Hiroki Kuroda and a
Yeah,
21-year-old Seiya Suzuki as your teammates on the same
yeah,
team. That must have been pretty crazy, seeing this guy who's been one of the all-time greats of Japanese baseball in both the US and Japan, and then this guy who's gone on to be, a major success. It's a bit like odd that you were on the same team as both of those guys at the same time.
no, it was crazy. And I saw how good Seiya could be. Like, before he even got over here. And I still think that he hasn't realized how good he can really be. I think that like injuries have kind of taken away some of that and taken a lot of his confidence away and like how good he was and how good he can be. But like prime Seiya Suzuki, like he should have probably like three, at least two MVPs for the Central League over in Japan. But I didn't think. I mean, I looked at the team, and then, like I said, I saw who was on the team, but I also saw kind of who I was following behind, and who I was following behind was one of my friends, Deontay Heath, like I said, and they always made the playoffs the year before, and he had put up fantastic numbers, and I was like, how did they let this guy go and want me to come be better than him? I was like, that's kind of crazy. So I was like, and then I saw that they signed Kuroda too, and then they had Chris Johnson, and I saw just the team that we were having, and I was just like, like there's a chance that like we could be really good. And then I saw Seiya like during spring training in the first couple of weeks of the season, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna be good. Like, and then people underrated. We had, two great players. Our first baseman, our second baseman were both like fantastic. I think they should probably both go into the Hall of Fame over in Japan for Japanese baseball. They're both should go in the Hall of Fame over there. And then we had the MVP of the league in center field one year too. So I mean, like, and I thought he was gonna. His name was Maru. I thought he was actually gonna come over to America at some point, but he said he wanted to stay at home. Like he got paid more money to stay at home, I believe, than he thought he could have got to come to America. But like that dude was really good too. I give him a shout out too.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on him before I brought him up. I was gonna mention Kikuchi, who is like a bit of a sort of internet darling for his infield defense, isn't he? It must have been he just felt pretty good. If the ball's on the floor, that's an out. That
Yeah,
guy's
that's
behind
all.
you. He's pretty special defender, right?
Yeah, he's won the Gold Glove. I think like every year he's been over there, pretty much, right? So like, but you knew anything on the right side of the infield, like if it was a ground ball, he has a chance to get to it somehow, which was unbelievable. And so, I mean, just trusting the defense that we had behind you and trusting the team that we had, I think was one of the best things like I said, I ever did. Like over there, winning the Japan series is huge and very special for a lot of places. But like winning your league is so much more special, I feel like, than like winning like the Japan series. Because you pretty much do all the things that the Japan series team does if you win the league championship. So it's you do all the same stuff. So like when we were over there, like I said, we won three in a row. We won three championships in a row with Hiroshima. So um, we had some special teams. And like I said, Kuroda was a huge part of it. He helped, stabilize that pitching staff. And he's somebody to look up to, and just the way he went about his business every day and what he was doing and what he was able to do at the age he was doing it, you know, commend him so like tremendously on that. And then, like I said, you see Seiya in the trajectory he's been on since I got to see him. People understand, like I got to see Seiya before he came over here to America, like I said, and I got to see his like first couple years of like baseball in, Hiroshima too.
Yeah, it's like seeing the band before they get huge, right?
Yeah.
That's your version, like being Sayers' teammate before he came over to the Cubs. So I want to sort of finish a bit, Jay, by I'm sure Russ has probably got some more questions as well, but asking a few questions about what's happened since you've come back. So you did sort of touch on this a little bit in answer to some of our earlier questions, but what was it about your experience in Japan that prepared you for the success that you've had subsequently in Milwaukee, in San Francisco, and in Toronto especially? What was it about? Was it just sort of that realization that you could step up and you could take that really important role in a successful team? Is that purely what's been behind what's changed for you since you've come back to the States?
No, I think for me it was just trusting myself. Like I went over there and I just got to, like I said, I got to be myself. I got to turn into Smiley J, and I got to just, like I say, be grateful for the moments I had over there, and then bringing that back and bringing that experience back and being on the biggest stage over there and being able to, handle it, but also being over there and just they don't play different brands of baseball, but knowing like how to approach hitters and like how to like use my stuff in different situations a little bit differently. And then when I came back, honestly, having the two catchers that I had the first 2 years I came back, I had Yasmani Grandal with the Brewers, And then I had Buster Posey with the Giants,
They're
and
both
they
quite
helped.
good.
They're
Yeah.
both quite good, right? So like, and they
Yeah,
had
not
me,
bad,
and
not bad.
they instilled a lot of confidence in me too because of just like talking baseball with them. That's one thing that I learned over there too, is like learning how, like I said, to approach hitters and then asking them questions about things and like having them have confidence in me to do certain things that I hadn't done before, but like knowing that I was capable of doing as well. And, being over there, just like I said, I got to be myself. I think that was the main thing I learned over there, is that I can trust myself and I can trust that I'm good enough to be, out there. It wasn't, not trusting myself before, but I finally had the opportunity to be out there and be on the biggest stage. I had those opportunities in Mexico before, and I had it a little bit in Venezuela, but I just really never had those opportunities. I was never given those opportunities, I felt like, in America. And the few small times I did, like I said, and played in the playoffs a couple times for minor league teams, and we did well. But having those opportunities and then coming back and knowing, like, hey, like, I can pitch in these games. Like, I should have trusted myself all along. I think just knowing that I was able to do it was the biggest thing for me coming back.
And in terms of the teams that you played for, you obviously have great memories of all of them. But the one that I've certainly heard when I've listened to other podcasts where you've spoken, Jay, that you seem to speak with most fondness is Toronto, which is kind of remarkable, given that that was a really difficult time for you in your personal life. For people who don't know, your son JR was born very premature in Utah, right, which is
Yeah,
not near Toronto on a
not
map.
at all. Not at all.
And you were performing incredibly on an absolutely brilliant Blue Jays team, with some absolute superstars, whilst going through what must have been an incredibly difficult time in your personal life. And I just wanted to ask about like how the Blue Jays supported you and how you sort of managed to endure through what must have been a really difficult situation for you through that.
Yeah, see I think that's why I speak so fondly of them. Even though, again, same thing, it kind of got jerked around a little bit at the end, right? It just kind of
Mm.
happens. But just the support they had in letting me go back and forth to Utah, and the timing of the things that they were trying to do, and them working with me and understanding the situation I was in, I think it did a lot. And I don't think it was just the organization. I think it was more, honestly, than the organization. It was the people and the fans and the whole country of Canada, honestly. I think they, and the support that they gave us and the prayers they sent out and all the fans that like supported us and checked in on us and would speak to us and wish nothing but good and positive things to us all the time. I think they helped us more than anything else. I mean, again, I support and think about the team and the fondness of the team with the ability that they had in the front office of having and allowing me the things that they did. But I think it was the fans and the people of Canada and just the people of Toronto, especially, and just how they supported us and just wishing us well and making sure like that I was there, and that when I got to be there, that they gave me nothing but love and support the whole time I was there.
I mean, that's absolutely wonderful. And I kind of wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, what JR's taught you. You must have learned something from him being part of your life, and sort of brought that back to your baseball too.
He teaches me something every day. That little man, the fact that he's here is nothing
Yeah.
short of a miracle. So he teaches me, first of all, that miracles do exist, and that the power of prayer and positivity is definitely a real thing, because a lot of people around us could have been really negative, and they had every right to be at the certain points of times, but all the people around us were so positive and so supportive the whole time, and made sure that that they just kept pumping nothing but positive energy into not only us but the nurses and JR and everything else like that. And so it showed me definitely the power of positivity and the power of love, and definitely the power of just like I said, prayer and good vibes and all that. But he's taught me that we're stronger than we'll ever think. That's one thing. Like, I think he's the strongest person in our family already. He's been through so much already. He just literally a week ago had his tonsils taken out. So this little man's been through so much already, and he keeps just going, and he keeps being happy, and he keeps smiling, and keeps being him, and I learned a lot from him just being himself, and being here has showed me like, hey, like no matter what I'm going through, like I can get through a little bit more because like he's gone through so much already. Like I've gone through a lot in my life, and I want him to understand that when he gets older that he's going to be able to achieve anything, but it's been nothing compared to what he's achieved already. So for me, it's literally he's taught me just to stay on the right path and just keep trying to grind through whatever you can. And just like I said, don't, and I think one of the other main things is don't take any second for granted because you never know what could happen. Because at any moment, honestly, during his whole ordeal when he was in Utah, we didn't know, and they tell us now, and they didn't tell us then about like how close he was possibly to not being here. And it's minutes and seconds and millimeters and this chord here, and so it tells me this to make sure that I'm grateful for every minute that I have and continue to be grateful and try to make the best of this thing and try to be as positive as I can, and try to hopefully be better for the other people around me as well.
Great. I mean, that feels like the sort of perfect sentiment upon which to sort of end this conversation, Jay. Thank you so much for your time. Encourage everybody to go out and get their copy of 9 Innings to Living Your Best Life. But if people haven't got that, where else can they keep in touch with you, Jay? Where's the best place to keep up with your progress over the course of this season?
Best place to keep up with me is Instagram, a little bit here on X. We're gonna ramp up some more content and stuff coming up real soon, hopefully, but it's gonna be on Instagram for sure. And then I'm gonna hopefully be having my personal Instagram page up, which is gonna be the Smiley J channel coming soon. But like I said, Instagram's gonna be the main place, and that's gonna be Jaxland58, Jaxland58. That's gonna be the best place to keep up with me. I normally try to keep some things on there, and I run that one pretty much personally with some help of some assistance here and there, but you're going to get a lot of me and more content from me than you probably are on any other platform until I get the YouTube channel done from, like, I think that's going to be more of my adventure once my playing days are done too. So as I continue to go through the playing days and work on like my training and rehab from last year and getting back to 100%, Instagram's going to be the best place.
Great. Well, we'll keep up with you there. We'll look forward to the Smiley J YouTube channel, and we'll look forward to the autobiography, I think. Jay, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good. I appreciate you guys.
Cheers, Jay.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate it. No, that was awesome. I appreciate it.